Welcome to the See What Sticks Variety Podcast featuring your hosts, Jake Andrews, Joe D'Souza, and Jackson Playfair.
Welcome to episode 2 of the See What Sticks podcast. Here again with you, I'm Jake Andrews, and with me as always is Joe D'Souza and Jackson Playfair. How you guys doing tonight?
G'day.
Doing very, very well. How you doing?
Good. It was one hell of a inaugural podcast last night. I felt like we could have done twice as long, but I'm glad we kind of left a little bit for the remainder of the schedule we got going forward. So it should be a good discussion tonight. We're going to touch a little bit on probably the world of movies and television. Maybe jump a little back to video games again because we probably can't help it. But then we're going to leave the floor open for a little bit of open discussion. And we'll have some of your favorite segments or our favorite segments that will hopefully soon become yours. So just getting started here. We can jump right into it. As far as movies go, any good movies you guys have seen lately that you want to kind of touch on as far as recommendations for the audience or recommendations for the other two?
Yes. I just watched Team America. It's on Netflix.
Dude, that is so funny. My brother and I were just talking about Team America up at the cabin. What a movie, dude. Like,
Dude.
let's just think about this for a second. That movie is fucking capital O outrageous, dude.
What's amazing is the quality of the puppetry. Like I was blown away with how amazing it looks. Jake, have you seen it?
I haven't seen the whole thing actually.
Oh man. I don't even think you need to see the whole thing in that movie, but it's just one of those I can't even compare it to anything, dude. Like you can't compare that movie against any other movie in the realm other than like maybe like Borat.
Yeah.
Which is like completely different, but like
the absurdity is there though, for sure.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
man, I was having such a good time literally just watching them move, just how they move around. Like some of the actions. Oh my goodness.
Dude, the love scene that they have.
It's oh my
like,
god.
tell me you'll never die. I can't tell you I'll never die. If you tell me you'll never die, I'll have sex with you right now. I'll never die. Dude, what a movie.
Yeah, so I recommend that.
As if that's on Netflix now, dude. I remember when that movie came out, it was like banned. Like you couldn't I don't even think they had it in theaters because it got like banned everywhere.
They're talking about a lot of racy things in that for sure. And the Kim Jong-un, I think I don't even know if I said that right. He's in it, and they're just like it's basically South Park with puppets, and it's if you like South Park, highly recommended.
That was my question. South Park's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I'm sure I would like it. It's basically taking the piss out of America for their like bald eagle fucking spread the freedom kind of attitude, right?
Yeah, America, fuck yeah, and then, like the whole song.
That's great. Jackson, what's on your radar lately?
Oh man, well, obviously I haven't seen anything like new in theaters recently with everything that's going on. So we've been crushing just like series, like new TV shows because I mean Netflix was obviously crushing it before any sort of pandemic took over, but man, like I feel like their lineup just like was adapted and ready for this moment. Like I think we were all ready to binge as is, but like some of the new series that they've come out with, like obviously Tiger King. Have you guys watched Tiger King?
Yeah. Oh, buddy.
Dude, how have you not seen Tiger King, man? That's so devastating. You got to, anyways, you got to check it out because that
first 10-15 minutes and you'll watch the whole fucking series. I guarantee you.
You watch it for 10 minutes and literally you're going, no,
this can't be
no. This isn't it. Like this isn't for real life. This isn't how someone lives every single day of their life. And then you watch 10 episodes of this. It's mind blowing, dude.
Errol Maskin's that bitch.
But dude, at this point, I feel like everybody's probably touched on Tiger King. But we just finished actually today the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, and man, that I don't know if either of you guys have you seen that?
I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in, and like I'm a big Jordan fan. I watch NBA quite a bit, and so far so good. Like
Oh
I already
man.
knew the guy was phenomenal and like on a different planet as far as his work ethic and what he contributed to the game. But it's crazy to see like a behind the scenes sort of look at their last run at things. It's truly like remarkable story being told.
Oh, and that's the thing is like, I think my generation kind of like, you always knew and know of Michael Jordan, right? But like, I never really got to follow him, I guess, in the same sense, or like be aware of the fandom that took over the world, man. So to get to watch such an in-depth look at like who he is as a person, who he was as an athlete, a teammate, all these things, um, it's something, man. Like it's truly. I messaged my family today. I was like, well, I think it's probably one of the best sports documentaries I've ever seen. Like, just the
It's
level
right
of
up there with the 30 for 30s.
yeah, exactly. The level of detail that they go into, and like, what a move your last season being like, hey, let's have an entire camera crew follow you around. Like, it's
I didn't
phenomenal.
even know that they did that. Like it's crazy that like they had that in the works for what 15 years or something with all the footage just stocked away and
I know, right? Like, there must be some sort of story behind that. What took it so long to get to where it got to? But again, Netflix just crushing it with these shows. And for movies, no, I don't really have anything off the top of my head, to be honest with you, that I can dive into. I've rewatched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood recently. That's a
I
great
still haven't
movie
seen that
too.
one.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that? Oh, okay.
Are you a Tarantino fan, Jake?
I am and I'm not. I liked Reservoir Dogs. I liked um, Pulp Fiction. I liked Kill Bill. I'm
Have
not
you
like
seen?
I'm not like the biggest fan of his, but like he's undeniably good at what he does.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, I find that like he's got a very interesting style, and it's amazing. What I find really incredible about all the Tarantino movies that I've seen is how he manages to blend comedy into these like hyper dramatic, hyper action oriented flicks, and like this one is definitely more of a drama, I would say, but it's very well acted. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt just knock it out of the park.
It's just a classic like slow roll, and then the way it ends, the big bang or like the explosion that comes with the fire at the end is, dude, it's wild. But
Yeah,
yeah,
my
no,
God,
I'd say
yeah.
like even Hateful Eight is on Netflix, and that's one of my favorite Tarantino movies, which is like kind of, I think it went straight to Netflix. It didn't necessarily get like the big open premiere hype, but it was unreal too. I'm a huge fan of Tarantino, but yeah, other than that, not really anything new on the movie front, but yeah,
I'm
I
gonna,
guess
I'm gonna I'm gonna throw a few things out at you guys. I got
let's
some
go.
ideas here. So recently, I've watched quite a few movies, but I think I still harken back to like the seminal cinematic experience of the decade, and that was uh, Avengers Endgame.
Ooh.
And I want to just kind of touch on, because it's going to be going for God knows how long. They'll probably do those things for the next 20, 30 years, as long as people will go out to the theater to see them. And I kind of wanted to ask you guys what your opinion of that was. Did you feel they wrapped up that arc significantly? And like, because we talked about Game of Thrones and how they kind of did it wrong. I personally feel that it was done almost as good as you could probably get it with, you know, such a big experience. But also, let's talk about the series as a whole, the highs, the lows. What did we like? What didn't we like? And I'll throw some ideas out at you as we go. But what do you guys think of the final film?
Okay. Spoiler
If
warning
they haven't seen it
for
after
probably
this
the next
amount of
little bit,
time, they can
but
choke on our spoilers.
Yeah, crawl out from underneath the rock that is your home,
yeah,
and go rent it at Blockbuster and watch Avengers Endgame, and then return to the podcast.
Yeah, turn it off now because it's spoilers for the foreseeable future.
yes.
Let's start with this. Did you like it or did you not?
Well, I did like it because I just want to say real quick though, 2019 was a complete year of the completion of major franchises. Like we had Game of Thrones finishing, we had Endgame finishing, we had Star Wars finishing, and then we had one more that I can't remember, but there was a fourth one. Anyway, back to Infinity War. Yeah, it was about the best that I think that they could have
Yeah,
possibly done
no,
with it,
I
hands
totally
down.
agree. I think ultimately, like we kind of touched on with Game of Thrones, it's so tough. Like, how do you wrap that up in a sense? I mean, like you said, I'm sure they're going to find ways to continue to make plenty of movies and go into different, deeper storylines in different areas and stuff like that. But I think it just got to such a big point where like it hit not even a ceiling, but it hit a level that like it's so hard to close things out without disappointing or making people feel like it wasn't the right way to go. And I think like ultimately those movies are they're such an experience. Like you go to the theater knowing what you're gonna get, and I think that movies like that I kind of love because it's the exciting part of the storyline that's gonna come is the hero villain, win, lose, draw, whatever happens at the end of the day. You want the good guys to kind of succeed and win, and for that, the way that they led into it with the ending of the one right before Endgame, and you kind of left the theater being like, "Damn, dude! Like, I hope something happens." And then the next movie, they shuck it all out a little bit. So, I thought it was a great way to kind of wrap things up. And there's definitely some major storylines or characters that are going to be hard or impossible to replace if the same actors aren't going to come back and do them, or if the storylines are just done. I think they did a good job of giving them their spotlight and wrapping it up in a good way. Like for example, like Iron Man. I love the Iron Man movies, and I think for me now, like Robert Downey Jr. will always be the Iron Man, and if they redo that or do it a different way, it might be tougher or next to impossible for me to really get into it or wrap my mind around it because I think he did such a good job as that character.
Yeah, like what a nice bow that they did, though. It really did feel like a nice bow tie. There was some definite shocking moments with it, but when I had went to go see it in theaters, and my buddy from work at the time had gotten us tickets to see it in 4D, which is with the chair and it's got the lights and like mist, and it makes you feel like you're kind of part of the movie. So that was super exciting, right? And we're ready to go, and we go check out our seats, and we're in the very bottom corner of the theater. There was maybe like 20 of the seats in the whole theater, but we're in like the bottom right corner. So with the glasses on, we were always looking up to the left watching the movies, and on the chair there's like air shot bursts, like little things that like and like the blow air by your ear and stuff. So when that, like, there's one scene where there's like the sword flying all over the screen, and the air is like shooting me in the eyeball, and it's making it really difficult to watch when I'm seeing it on screen. So it was almost like a painful experience, but it was still pretty cool, and it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah,
But
man. Like, how many D is too many D? 4D? Is 5D too much D? I don't know.
Depends who you ask. I think there's quite a few, you know, noteworthy moments in the film, and I think it's currently sitting at number 2 out of the 23 movies in ranking. I think I'd probably agree with that ranking, but I just want to go through some of the moments because I felt like when I was watching it, I was like a little kid getting to live his perfect comic book experience out on the screen, and there was so many moments that caught me, and just in my head, I'm just like, "Fuck yeah!"
Yeah.
So Thor finally goes for the head. So 20 minutes into the movie, we get the scene with Thanos where nobody sees it coming, and he just lodges that thing right in his forehead, and that just kind of sets the stage of okay, some big shit's gonna go down if we just saw him get dropped in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you got Captain America's scepter heist. He goes back in time, ends up making self-aware jokes about Hail Hydra in the in the elevator, and then he ends up battling his younger self for the scepter, Loki scepter. I thought that was done brilliantly, and the look on Cap's face when he sees himself is priceless. Everybody loves bro fat Thor. I think
Oh.
that's one of the moments people still remember most.
That's gonna be a Halloween costume if it already isn't.
Dude, I
I
was
can
not
guarantee.
expecting bro fat Thor at all.
And then you got the Avengers reassembling, and I remember it in the movie because Falcon's on your left callback line was the perfect way to kind of open the floodgates for everything to happen after it. And that's when you get to see them finally all back together after Infinity War ripped them apart. I thought that was fantastic. Then you have the Infinity Gauntlet kind of hot potato going on when they get it off his hand and multiple people get to hold it and they're all using their powers to keep it away from him. That was insane. You get Captain America finally picking up Thor's hammer, and then Scarlet Witch unleashing her powers on Thanos. You get to see a taste of what many people call the most powerful hero in the universe, and also
Yeah, can we just like go real opinion for a second about Captain Marvel? Like, uh, you're a big fan. But like,
I
why is
love
it that
her.
it takes her 23 movies before she's like, maybe I should go help out? Like, I get she was busy doing other shit, but like, is Earth not the most
Yeah.
important?
She's like, well, other people. I guess I watched it like a couple weeks ago, and the one thing that she said, I was like, okay, it's like a sentence, but she's like, there's a bunch of other planets that don't have you guys, so I gotta go help them out, and I get that. It's so cheeky, and it's like such an easy, like it's a clever write around for why
well,
she just shows up in the
she's
like the
like an
23rd movie or
intergalactic
whatever.
police force.
But
You know,
man,
it's kind of like the I'm only coming when I'm absolutely necessary because the threat wasn't big enough to warrant it up until this point. You could argue for and against that, but I didn't find it too far fetched.
No, that's legit. I got that.
yeah, I fell in love with her. I fell in love with her.
Another one is Thor dual wielding Stormbreaker and Mjolnir at the same time, and then the number one moment of the film is Iron Man finally putting an end to Thanos, all of his forces, and sacrificing himself. And the seminal words, "I am Iron Man," before it all goes down.
Yeah, yo, dude, the whole okay, like Thanos and Iron Man are an incredible dichotomy. How like so they're both very individual based, right? And what's interesting about Thanos, which makes him a very very compelling
Oh, dude, that's so
villain,
cool. I
is
was
that he
just
thinks
thinking
he's
that
right.
thought. Like, he's such a relatable human villain because he, like you said, like he genuinely doesn't feel like he's doing evil. Like he knows the reality of his belief is that like we're overpopulating. There's too much going on. It's not sustainable. And like
There's some
his
realism to that too, like some
exactly, man. That's such a human thing. Like, they always say like even in the biggest human villain that we've ever known in real life, like it like Hitler,
Donald
like
Trump.
Donald
Oh,
Trump. That's
yeah, okay.
tough, but yeah, no Hitler, but like, and Hitler didn't think he was doing anything wrong, dude. Like they say that like Hitler was like shocked that the German population wouldn't like execute themselves after they realized that Germany had lost the battle because he so truly believed that like everyone supported him so much and that his overall like quest or mission was a good thing to do, which is such a wild thing about the human like view of self, right? Like Than
It gives me an idea to talk about a
Yeah,
history. Like I could do a whole podcast on World War II because I'm such a like history war buff. But I mean, the reasoning behind why he started what he started kind of made sense from the fallout of World War One to all the sanctions placed on Germany. Everyone basically saying, World War One was your fault. We're gonna lock your country down, and they saw untold levels of poverty. And he wasn't German; he was Austrian. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, but he saw the suffering of the German people and an opportunity to seize a wounded and discouraged population and kind of manipulate them for his own cause. So
Yeah. It makes me actually think of Loki in the first Avengers movie, in that speech that he has when he goes to like steal the guy's like eyeball, like shape or whatever the fuck to open the door or whatever. When he makes that speech and he says something like you guys crave this, like you guys want to be ruled over, you want to be, I guess, like for lack of a better term, slaves or whatever he says in it. And I just love that the one guy, the one like older gentleman, just stands up. He's like, not to be
People
like
Yeah.
gravitate
you.
towards
It's kind of a
strength.
cool
So if
thought.
you're a disenfranchised, shit on population like Germany was in the 1920s, you're going to look for somebody to rally behind that seems to have it together and seems to be in a position of strength to rally the downtrodden.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that like
Yeah.
it's kind of like the schoolyard bully, you know, and when someone's going to stand up for them, you know, it's a belief that you can stand behind the person who's willing to speak and get behind them. And I think that the reason for why I feel superhero movies have blown up in I would say probably the last 10, 15 years. I mean, I'm pretty sure Iron Man was the first Marvel movie like in the new franchise, because it was, I remember
Yep.
reading essentially the Marvel was kind of scrambling and made Iron Man on not a shoestring budget, but definitely nothing even close to what they have nowadays. And the success of that movie kind of fueled the rest of the push through everything else. And I think that like the reason that superhero movies are so successful is obviously the technology of CGI and different types of computer programs that allow them to go to these crazy places. But they are kind of that like one man, one woman standing up against. I mean, that was one thing with the Avengers that I always thought was impressive, and I think Game of Thrones. Going back to last episode, we were talking about this eighth season when it's the White Walkers finally arrive at in the north, and when like I'm kind of going two different ways here, but stay with me. So when the White Walkers, when they finally hit the wall, I remember watching that scene, and you're expecting this like for sure big army running towards the wall, and just the way that it was honestly like a wave of bodies, dude, like just dead
Yeah,
bodies and
straight up.
human flesh, and just like it overwhelmed you watching the episode. Like I literally remember sitting there being like, "Oh my god!" Like,
I'm scared for these.
yeah, what would you do? Like, what would you honestly do being a soldier standing there, and all of a sudden, a 35-foot wall of people comes like running out of nowhere? It's so
You pray to
intimidating.
the Lord of Light. That's what you do.
Exactly. And so I think Avengers is a very similar theory, right? Where like when space kind of busts open and people start coming in from different dimensions, and it's this overwhelming feeling of like you can't do it, and one entity or a team of entities comes together, and that's the beauty of all these movies is they each get their own little shows or different aspects that explains the whole thing, and then at the end the team defeats the evil power, right? And I think that says so much about what humans want and what we like ultimately all can connect to and relate to is like you can all fight your individual battles as long and as hard, and you're going to have successes and you're going to have failures and ups and downs, but until you can find that team of Avengers to look out for you or look out for everybody, it's a lot harder to solve the ultimate issue. And even then, I think that's the funny ongoing joke with Marvel is like no matter how many times they save the world, they're gonna have to save the world again in 6 months when a new movie comes out. That's like, you
But
know,
they keep upping the ante. Like it's not like it's
Wow.
just some hollow trip from one point to the next. Like they did a good job of setting it up, which I guess paints the picture between them and DC because DC saw their success halfway through the Marvel Cinematic Universe and said, "Hey, let's do that too." But they went about it in a very rushed and you know disorganized way. They didn't have the Kevin Feige at the top with the support of the brass, kind of guiding the whole ship.
mm-hmm.
That brings me actually to 2 points, because I had one point that I wanted to bring up, but that actually makes me think of like a reverse way of looking at this point I'm about to say, which is Kevin Feige comes in late in the game, right? Because he's super like it just works whatever he does, and that lack of focus, that like kind of change in perspective for those movies, it made Justice League just kind of like a meh movie. Like there wasn't, it just seemed like a carbon copy, you know what I mean? Like it didn't, what I actually really liked about Man of Steel, even though there was some really cringe-worthy parts in it, I enjoyed 300. I enjoyed the dark, gritty, you know, kind of like malignant sort of feel, that tone of just like in your face, and like Superman kills his first person. He's Superman. He doesn't kill people. Like what's going on? Like that whole take, that kind of take of realism was really cool. But going like bringing it back to Thanos, I was thinking that kind of like how you were saying, Jax, about you need that team to do good, and I find it really interesting is that Thanos, he was a dictator. He was a tyrant. There was no team of like communicative ideas that you could bounce ideas off. So he never knew when he was doing something wrong. He
absolutely.
just
And I
thought
think
he
that
was right
that's
the whole time.
what power does, right? I think that like looping it back to real world, um, when you watch, and it's crazy to look back and watch like the speeches of like you said, like Hitler and Nazi Germany in the early 20th, like 1920s. Um, the support and the rally and the belief of the people saying, yeah, we were wronged, we were disrespected, and now we have this one person that's going to singularly bring the power back and make us whole again. And you fast forward to what it all ended up becoming and being, and you know, you look back on history and you realize that power, like absolute power, corrupts absolutely, and that is 100% true. And that's what's really cool about these movies is I think that people are able to connect no matter if you're in space, no matter if you can fly or shoot laser beams out of your eyes or have ultra human strength or whatever. If there's a human message that you can connect to, people are always going to connect to that, and people are always going to come back to
Yeah,
that.
there's a wholesomeness.
Exactly. There's a belief, right? There's the belief that, okay, no matter how bad it gets, we got our guys that are going to fix it. And I think that, you know, shifting in a different direction, but I think that that's what like the United States kind of became after World War II, right? It was like they were that big brother that you're going to look out for us, and you're going to, at least they self-marketed and advertised as the big brother for the world. And then when shit really goes south, they're going to Captain Marvel it and show up and take care of business. And I think that like that's what's been crazy with the pandemic that we've seen hit the world across everywhere is they've really dropped the ball on that. You know, like they didn't handle it, they didn't take care of it the way that
Yeah.
millions of people expected them to kind of lead the way, and everyone else would follow. And then all of a sudden they're dropping the ball at such a crazy level where their numbers are going up on an exponential scale when the rest of the world is doing a good job of containing or working or figuring it out. I think the whole world just kind of went, okay, like we knew that this was going that way. We kind of could see with the president and this and that, but to really have a moment where you know, since World War II, they've stepped up and taken care of what everyone's kind of thought needed to be taken care of, and to miss that, um, you know, I think it's left the window open for change now in the world's view of what the U.S. used to be. You know.
Yeah, perhaps it might have taken them off of their high horse in a sense. Like, you know, like I'm trying to think more like on a kind of globalization, a little bit more objective, as much as that's even possible. But in the like, it seems like for a while there, oh yeah, like America kind of had this identity of like manifest destiny, manifest, do we're invincible, like greatest country, like the whole like
The
Trump's
American dream.
yeah, like Trump's whole thing was like make America great again, like as if it's, you know, it lost its way a little bit, but we're gonna like, you know, steamroll forward, and that, you know, there's that whole, that it's an attitude, like America seriously has an attitude, and that attitude has gotten them into a lot of trouble, with like jackals into other you know, like the whole oil industry business. Like I only know a little bit about it, but you know, there's whispers of like all these things that America, you know, isn't perhaps proud of, things that they did, but they did for power, and that, you know, that I feel like, yeah, like that power of being America might have gotten to America's head, so to speak, in a negative way. And it's interesting how this COVID-19 has seemingly leveled the playing field a little bit, and might have opened like the world's eyes into being like, maybe America isn't like the absolute top of the chain. It feels like China's trying to take that role, or Russia. Like there's a play for the governing power of the world, and we're at an interest. It feels like we're in a different dimension, really. But
Well, I think most
who's to
people's
say?
trepidation with the American kind of pushing freedom on the rest of the world, so to speak, is who gives them the right to be the big brother, because they shepherded us through World War II. They weren't even involved in it. People were getting slaughtered left, right, and center, and it took Pearl Harbor for them to enter it. They were dead set against entering the war. Um, and even after it, like when they dropped the bomb, that was Truman's decision. And the only reason that he had the opportunity to make that call was because FDR got sick and died. And the Cold War only happened because FDR died. He was developing relations with Stalin, and Stalin's a Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the
Who's
president
FDR?
during World War II.
He died of
Oh,
polio, didn't he?
oh, Roosevelt.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Who,
He's
by the
regarded.
way, Bill Gates eradicated. Boom. Sorry, not to cut you off, Jay.
I feel like you should.
Listen,
You
I'm
should
not
have
a
a
huge
poster
fan
of
of
Bill
this
Gates
thing.
in your room if you don't.
All right, we're back on track.
Yeah, my bad.
FDR is usually regarded as the greatest American president in history by a lot of people, and I think I would agree with that opinion, because it takes real strength to not go the easy route and make the decisions when all of your yes men, particularly in the military that have invested interest in invasion of countries, to kind of put the pause and say, no, I am the person that the American people look up to make the right decisions. And he's one of the last few presidents besides JFK I can think of that actually took a stand for the people. And um, he was developing relations with Russia because he knew it was important that the people that contributed to stopping Germany's world domination were not only recognized, but that we reach for some form of understanding in a world where it's easy to highlight the differences. And as soon as he was gone, Truman had it. There's a great Oliver Stone directs and narrates a great documentary on Netflix. It's history of World War II, or no, it's uh, I'll get you guys the name of it later, but it's one of the greatest war documentaries I've ever seen, and it's called like the Untold History of the United States or something, and he shines light on that war and other conflicts like Vietnam in a certain um, light that most people don't get that perspective. So I think it's a good watch for people if they're open minded. And there was a lot of yes men in Truman's ear saying, you have to drop the bomb, you have to antagonize Russia, you have to paint them as the enemy, they're no good. But if Russia did not stand the line at Stalingrad and lose, what was it, 20 million people? Like, I think the States only lost like a couple 100,000 in the entire war. The real tragedy was the Russian people getting decimated. And, you can say what you want about Russia being the enemy. Their people are not the enemy. They were people standing up for their country and trying to defend their homeland. I wholeheartedly respect their role in the war that determined the fate of the world. And I don't think they're given enough respect. They won the war. It was not the States. It was a contribution from all of the allies, but they're often painted as an afterthought when they were the linchpin. They were the reason.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the image that history shows, and then the way that it's been painted, right, and that's why you can always, I think that ultimately the U.S. has found a way to market itself. But yeah, I think that they've like Russia as a whole is very complex, I think, to people in Western, like Canada and the US because it's over there, you know, it's the other, it's the different, it's the quote unquote enemy. But like you said, like that's what we would do in the similar situation. Like you defend what you know to defend, right?
Well, and they they dropped the bomb and claimed victory for the war because of it. And then they felt because we're in control of the bombs, nobody else can have the bombs, but we can have the bombs because we're going to use them responsibly. Like, that is such a hypocritical worldview to take. Oh, Iran's got bombs. They're not allowed to have bombs, but we can have bombs because we use them responsibly. Do you think the Japanese people think that you use them responsibly?
Well, as long as nobody uses the bombs, I think that if we have an alien invasion, those motherfuckers are getting shot into the sky. Because like every country has, I think that's the only
Well,
way
yeah,
that
Do
and I
you,
think,
do you think
those are
those
going
would
to be
even work on
useful.
alien technology? Who the hell knows? They could
dude,
have
are we even
deflectors.
prepared for the aliens, dude?
Yeah, maybe not.
Have you listened to the Little Dicky song, Brain? Oh man, I don't know if you ever heard Little Dicky, but he's like a rap artist who kind of does like joke rap, and he's like started to blow up in the past few years. But he has a hilarious like 8 minute song called Brain. And if you're listening, if you have a minute, if you guys after this, I'll send you the link. But he like it's a rap song, but it's featuring his brain and his brain. So he's rapping, and then his brain is like doing like a feature. So he raps every once in a while, and it's him having a conversation with like a one night stand that he brought home. And it's just hilarious because at one point he goes like, if the aliens show up right now, do we even have the technology to fuck with the aliens, or would the aliens just fuck us up? Like what would be the ultimate? And I don't know, man. I think that like going back to what you're saying, it's kind of been that energy for so long that I think we're now seeing in like in different ways of like he who holds the bomb or has the button holds all, where like that's being shifted into new ways. It's now like he who holds the power can say whatever he wants or they want, and that's just the way it is. Like news is at such a weird place, man. Like what is like I have this the like some friends and family who like you send each other articles or you see something in the newspaper or online or Twitter or whatever, and you send it to somebody, and like I have people that send me shit all the time, and I'm like, that's I don't know if that's real. Like some of the articles you get now, it's like how do you fact check something that's written in like a newspaper where they're writing 30 articles a day that isn't a big news, even big newspaper. Like information is at such a weird place, partly because I think that it's like so accessible. The internet has so many answers to so many questions, but at the same time we're at such a unique weird place where like I think news has never been like less credible, but at the same time information has never been more readily available, you know?
That's so interesting because I think me and you have talked about this, Jake. I think it was you, but news, like the way the news, real quick, I guess actually Facebook is trying to implement some sort of fact checker. I read that somewhere, I heard that somewhere that that's something that they're trying to currently do so that misinformation isn't so damn readily available. But yeah, I had so like what's interesting about the news being like Fox News or CBC or whatever, there's a need for shockness. Like there's a need for like to bring viewers in something that's like that's why we don't see a lot of like puppy dogs being born and like really positive stuff because it's the crazy car accidents and all the madness and the drama that happens that attracts a lot of people. And so like in terms of news being misinformed, like perhaps there's a little bit of that going on with the misinformation in the sense that like people are just saying the craziest thing to get people's attention even if it might not be wrong. Like how do you really know? So like fact checkers are super important.
Like, I'm in university for communications and media studies. So one of my classes, it was a communication as forms of propaganda. We had somebody from the CBC come in and kind of tell us how um, they deliver stories, how they come up with finding what's going to be in the news. And I felt like something inside me just compelled to ask them, like, who at the top is making the decision to put the cute puppy on page 2 and then the really important news on page 8. Like, do you guys not feel a sense of moral responsibility as journalists to present us the actual news rather than forms of entertainment like Paris Hilton and all that? And she was a little taken aback, and it was in front of the class, so I kind of put her on the spot, but she kind of said, yeah, there is a certain integrity in all of us that says we should be reporting on A and instead 90% reporting on B, which is irresponsible in a sense, but they're paid in advertising, and they're paid by their views, and what attracts views is entertainment and popularity gossip. And I said, okay, well, CBC is a publicly funded broadcasting network, so isn't that irresponsible of a public broadcasting network to focus on stuff that should be reserved for gossip magazines? And she agreed with me, but I said, if it's publicly funded, she said it's only 50% publicly funded. If it was 100%, there might be a different story. And I said, well, that's a serious conversation government needs to have. Is we should totally fund it with taxpayer money, and then they don't have to worry about what they do and don't report on. They should just report the important things, or not just, but like mostly. Come on, there's way more important stuff than the Kardashians' third outfit of the day.
Well, okay, yeah. So like that's okay. That brings me to think like,
They want
what
to
do
be
people
distracted from
want
their
to
lives. They're
see?
Yeah,
Like, what is it
exactly.
mundane
about
lives.
that?
They want this yuppie, eat it up, friggin' Kardashian reality show kind of crap,
It's
and I
easy.
understand why.
It's easy. It's consumable, right? It's like every day of our lives, we in some way or every week we've been told, to live a long, healthy life, you eat this way and you do this and you work out and you think healthy and you meditate and you do yoga and you do all these things that people tell you that are the right thing to do to live a long, healthy life or be happy or this or that. But at the end of the day, those things are a little bit more difficult. They're a little bit harder. In simpler terms too. It's like I always look at it as like cooking, right? It's like if you're gonna get in the kitchen and cook a good meal at home, like how good it's gonna be, how it's gonna turn out, that it's gonna be better for you most likely. But at the same time, that's the uncomfortable push to do something that you don't really always want to do versus the drive-through where you can always go get the fries, right? So it's like real journalism is not easy. Real journalism of digging and asking the hard questions and the hard stories. And then once you have it as a like we talked about yesterday with the video game industry, it's like once news becomes a business, then all the bets are off because what is going to get you the views? What is going to get you the clicks? What is going to sell you the
Yeah,
fries? What is going to like that's what ultimately it comes down to. And I think that kind of information is easy for us to consume where it's a little bit harder for people to consume the stuff that's really going to actually matter, change. And then, like you said, like people have bad days. So if you're having a bad day and then you turn on the TV and you see maybe some news that doesn't make you feel good or make you feel happy or informed or whatever, it's easier to look at the Kardashians and be like, oh, well, yeah, they're rich and famous, but like, look at all their problems. At least I don't have those problems. But you know what I mean? I think it's, yeah, but
yeah, that's a good point.
I think so. I feel like I need to preface what I said before with like, if there's viewers listening and saying, I like the Kardashians though, what's your problem, man? Like, lighten up. Like, okay, so I watch Survivor. I just watched Love Island with my girlfriend. I'm not against the trash TV. I think there's a time and a place for it, but there's a forum for those types of things, and it is not publicly funded broadcasting networks that we should be relying on to give us the actual news. And
no.
like, I think in this time and place in the internet where there's things like WikiLeaks, and there's more independent news networks than ever before, and there's places other than mainstream media to get your news, and I think more and more people are gravitating towards those, especially the younger generations, because they don't trust the mainstream media. And no wonder they don't. I just looked up an article on Forbes, and there's 15 millionaires that own around 90% of the news networks in America. Now you're telling me that these people that fund the news aren't going to try to toe the line of their own agenda, like what they want the news to be like? Of course they are. And it's like Fox News is left or right, and CNN is the other side of the coin, and it's just bash, bash, bash. There's no sense of journalistic integrity in those networks. It's a sad state of.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's like John Mayer's song "Waiting on the World to Change." There's one line there where he's like, "When they own all the
Yeah, and like, I
information, they
mean,
can bend it all
I'm
they
not going to
want."
push for communism by any means, but is it not the ultra capitalism
No, I
that
ain't going
pushes
there.
it? It's
Yeah.
like once you get to a point where you own more of the material than anyone else can ever get, once you start talking about billions, like when you get into the billion realm, in that, I think at that point it becomes like the difference between controlling the news and having the news control you, right? Like it's a lot for me. If I own a business and that business has a scandal breakout, I would much rather own the company that's breaking the news on the scandal than be the one turning my TV on and seeing it happen, right? So I think it's such a weird place because, like you said, in Canada, I think that we feel like we deserve that because I think we feel like we can have that and we should have that. Like we should have real news, and as we should across the world. But I think that there's so many different levels to it when you look at like how does that actually work? How does that actually function? How does that become a reality? Um, that
Yeah.
it's dense, right? Like I think it's such a dense thing to unpack, and overall, I don't know if they're. I mean, yeah, I think I don't know, Jake.
Have you guys ever seen the movies Zeitgeist or Thrive?
Oh yeah, we watched it when it first came
Okay,
out,
so
man. We like
I've
fell asleep
had
to it when we were growing up.
I've had moments where I've never they use the term woke. I've never been more woke in my life than at times where I watched and sat down and paid attention to those movies. And one of the bits in I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the first one. They start to unpack capitalism and the thought of money. And people are scared of money. They don't understand how it's made, how it's distributed, how it works in the larger scheme of things. And I won't pretend to be an expert on the topic, but it is a sickening state when they're basically printing money as numbers in a computer and charging interest on that, so there's never enough money in circulation to actually pay down the debt. You were talking about uh, communism, and it's a funny thought, but people think about capitalism as it's some unpenetrable or impenetrable force that can never be criticized because it's what's in place, and to criticize that would be to criticize America and freedom. But let me tell you, a quick fact check will be: in 1950, the first year of one of the most prosperous economic decades in American history, the richest 400 households paid a tax rate of a whopping 70%. In 1980, the number was 47%. Now it's down to 23. And the richest 400 families possess as much wealth than the bottom 60% of the nation. Now, how is that fair? And if anybody wants to say you can't tax the rich, it's un-American, they earn their keep. No, it's time to spread wealth throughout the nation to let the nation prosper because it's dying from the inside.
That's yeah, man. I mean, it's a heavy, thick, uh, very difficult to navigate sea. I think because like I mean, on the one hand, I completely agree with you. I completely agree that but the thing about it is that like the way that capitalism runs is that it's just the people that are at that level of wealth right now are there because of the good decisions that their family members have made. Some of them, of course, have been completely lucky, right? And a lot of people in our generation are born into that, and that feels unfair because the gap is growing and growing, and I think that's where a lot of the problem is. And it's because the amount of increase in the cost of goods and rent and so on and so forth has been seemingly constantly going up, whereas for instance our minimum wage, the different like we've all seen it, right? Like on Facebook there's all these people that are constantly sharing like back in 1970 a part-time job could help you raise a family, and nowadays you can barely survive rent on a part-time job. And if you're not making a certain amount, or for instance like houses, like in 1999. I'm watching Boy Meets World right now, and in 1999, when that show was being aired, they were thinking about getting an $80,000 house. An $80,000 house, and they were like, "Are you crazy? That's way too much. That's really expensive." Whereas now, like for instance, the house that was next door that my dad had bought. He had bought it for like $100,000. In less than
Yeah.
a decade, it tripled. Like it tripled in the cost. Like houses are going up for 350 in like a matter of like 3 years. It went from like 185 to like 260 in just a few years, and we're still getting paid the minimum wage that we're getting paid 20 years ago. You know, like
Couldn't agree
there's a
more.
disconnect.
Yeah, I think that it's broken, right? Like I think that that's the easiest way to put it. So let me ask you guys something that's kind of very new, been discussed for quite a while. I think in different realms a what if, right? But I think Canada's experiencing a very weird moment where, um, with CERB, like for those of you who are listening who aren't from Canada, who I think most of our listeners are probably going to be from Canada, but for those of you who aren't, during the pandemic, Canada put out a thing that basically allowed for people to apply for government assistance of $2,000 a month for up to 4 months if you've lost your job or you're unable to work or you're taking care of somebody sick affected by COVID. Um, I think there's a bunch of different speculations that qualifications that we don't need to get into, but essentially the government opened up the doors and said, listen, if you need help, we're going to help you. We're going to figure this thing out. And I would be very interested to see. I don't know if that's this is coming from, I have no expertise about this, so I'm just going to throw it out there and let you guys respond. But I don't know where the government is off better or worse where we're at today. And I know once next tax season rolls around and everyone's got to deal with um, that being a taxable income in different areas and all these things, it's going to be at a unique point. But overall, I think the Canadian economy has been able to run at a very stable level throughout this. Stable in air quotes, because obviously certain businesses and people are suffering more than others and going through very hard times. And obviously the people affected by the disease and the sickness have suffered more than imaginable. But as a whole, that $2,000 injection into the population, I I eventually I think we'll look back and realize that really did help our economy as a whole remain some sort of level running, where you compare it against our neighbors and people in need are getting a $1,200 stimulus check one time. Like that's not enough to pay for groceries and a phone bill. Like, you know what I mean? I think that we're at a weird place where we've kind of experimented with universal basic income, and it's going to be interesting to look back in the coming months and see what that really looked like, you know?
Yeah, I've read an article that was saying that there's been talks apparently that they're considering it becoming a universal basic income. There is a bit of concern, like um 2000 is a bit too much in the sense for like a universal income, because it really reduces the incentive, because it's basically like you got everything covered, you don't need to work. More like a $1,200 kind of stimulus every, so at least pay rent and some food, but you still got to work, right? I know me and Jake have talked about a universal basic income in the past, years ago, and being like it would kind of be sort of like the middle ground of communism and capitalism, because like the brutal thing about communism is that you don't own anything, so everybody's just getting paid the exact same amount. So like for instance in Cuba, that's still considered communist and still runs by a communist government, like the doctors are getting paid the same amount as any other job. And like there is a difference between like the qualifications of being like a surgeon and being a bartender, and even bartenders, for example, will make slightly more because they make tips, but the government still takes most of that. And so I think the issue with that kind of viewpoint on things being communism is that that also kind of kills the drive. It's kind of like we were talking about with the different consoles yesterday, when we were talking about like how like both Microsoft and Sony are kind of at each other's throats, and that's what keeps developing the technology to the point that it's just almost like realistic. And I think that that's what capitalism does so damn well, and why I think the world still is running on a capitalist kind of economy. is because it just pushes the boundary so much constantly. Everybody's competing with each other. Everybody's making money. How much you put in, you'll get back. There's ways to navigate the game a little more freely than whereas communism is like, well, basically stuck. Like, what do you love to do? And that, I guess, is also a cool idea as well. But at the same time, like a UBI, I think is the way is the happy medium, in terms of a UBI. Real quick, the last thing I wanted to say was, like, we're gonna have to pay for this. Like, how are things gonna change? How's that gonna get offset? And I mean, if I were to make any kind of assumption right now, if I were to point the flashlight on how much money we spend on, for instance, weapons of mass destruction in our military budget, and that's basically on a concern of like the other. It's on a concern of like, we don't know what other countries are going to do. We don't trust ourselves. I feel like a lot of that money, if we just, if like, I'm talking really tree huggy right now, but and a little bit woo, but I mean, I'm throwing it out there. Like, I mean, if we didn't spend so much money on all these bombs and shit and like giant crazy jets that blow each other up, then I feel like
I have
that
a
could
lot
pay
to
for a
say about
UBI.
this, so I'm
Just
gonna
saying.
try and be articulate when I say it, but I'm gonna jump from points to points here. So most people peg the cost of universal
Giver.
basic income for a country like the United States, which has a way bigger population than we do, at around $200 billion annually. Now you're saying to yourself, that's a lot of money. But in comparison, when you think about what the GDP is, I think it's around $3.5 to $4 trillion a year for the states, and their military spending per year is, I think, 678 billion, and they outpace the rest of the 9 top 10 countries in the world combined. So you could reduce that to 478 billion, still have the biggest military budget by far, and pay for universal basic income. And I go back to what you were saying about
Wow.
2000's too much. I don't think that anything is too much. We have to determine what inflation has done to the cost of living, what is the average cost of living in the country you live in, and peg the number somewhere around there. I think you made an amazing point about inflation outpacing income, and I have a good job with the government where we're union and we get guaranteed raises. I think it's 2% every 4 years, and that's not even enough to barely combat inflation. So I can't imagine a single mother working 2 part-time jobs, how that's affecting them. But the universal basic income, it doesn't.
Seriously.
I think it's a misconception that it runs the course of motivation. It doesn't have anything to do with the motivation of people, because motivated people are motivated whether or not they are given that money. It just means they don't have to worry about their basic needs. Those are covered. People with drive will drive towards their dreams and be more free to do so, not being shackled by the basic necessities that they need. And do I weigh chasing my dreams versus working to feed my family? Um, I think when you're talking about the unmotivated
Yeah.
people, okay, there's a point to be made there. But my argument for that would be unmotivated people are unmotivated. In a world where they don't have their basic needs covered, they're probably committing crimes, they're probably stealing, they're probably out there causing catastrophe that taxes the healthcare system, which taxes the police force, which is all publicly funded. That costs money. So if you give those people enough to cover their basic needs, even if they're paying for drugs or paying for drugs with that money, at least they're not out committing crimes to get the money they need to indulge in their bad habits. And we see a reduction in crime. We see a reduction in health. We see an uptick in people's happiness. We see people being nicer to each other, a more fully functioning society. And the last point I want to make is there was a pilot experiment in the 1970s. It was in Dauphin, Manitoba, I believe. They gave everybody a guaranteed basic income as a pilot project, and they noticed reduced levels of poverty, reduced levels of crime, reduced healthcare costs. Everything we're talking about was the result of that experiment.
Wow, yeah. Like, I just, as a real quick point, you know what I mean. Like, yeah, I totally agree with that. As long as needs are covered, then if you want that extra shiny car, then work for it. You get there anything extra as a perk, right? So
Yeah, and I
the
think like
UBI makes complete
approaching it from
sense
a
for sure.
different viewpoint with the same idea in mind is instead of viewing it as like a freebie or a gateway to just sit on your ass and not do anything. I think people need to understand like we can't go backwards. We can't uninflate. Like inflation is going to a point where um, certain markets can crash, certain things can come down, certain things can blow up in our face. But as a whole, we can't in a manageable way deflate where we're at, right? So it's like I don't think people ever expected, even for example, I don't think people really ever expected groceries to cost $300 every 2 weeks to feed a family. I think that those things happened without human control influencing it. It was just a matter of time and advertising and free business and marketing and all these components that come into it. So how do you uninflate that? How do you go to the person that you're renting a house from and say, "Oh, by the way, I know we've been paying this much money for the past year, 2 years, 3 years, but yeah, we're uninflating that. So now I have to pay the rent of what it was back in 1990 for a 2 bedroom place in downtown Vancouver." Like that's not going to work. That's not going to be something that is manageable in many senses. But what is manageable is allowing people the opportunity to meet those needs, like we talk about, and then pursue other things. Because there's a reason that every single person in the world isn't a millionaire or a billionaire, or own a business, or an athlete, or a movie star, or go after all the things and talk about all the things that takes more effort than what your regular job is. Like that, the providing for yourself and for a family, and then chasing a dream and pursuing that dream and succeeding on that dream are kind of different things in a sense, because providing and working and getting enough money to get by versus realizing that you have to sacrifice and go after opportunities and chances. I don't think that's like that's going to continue to happen. People are going to continue to stay at home, but it's not a view where it's going to destroy the motivation of individuals. I think that's kind of what we're seeing with what's going on right now on a whole, is like even though people are getting their stimulus checks or their serve checks, I still think people in the back of their minds are like, when I can, I want to go back to work. I want to be productive. I want to go see my friends. I want to go and interact. And whether that's serving, or that's working a construction job, or that's working at the TSA, or doing whatever, if you hate it to the point that you hate it so much, yeah, you might quit, but you're gonna go get another job doing something else. In theory, that the whole population isn't going to go, "Oh, free money, I'm done doing what I want to do." Like I think that it ultimately could change the way that we view what a job is, right? Like I think for me, I miss going into the office. When I could go into the office, I hated going into the office. Like I didn't like it. And now that I can't do it, I'm like, damn, I miss that. So moving forward for the rest of my life, I will always appreciate what it means to go into an office and be around people and have conversations and get up and walk to the coffee machine or walk to the water cooler and have those, like, you learn to appreciate those things once they're not there. And I think that what Canada's realizing, I hope, as an overarching theme, is you can take care of your people and people will still want to take care of each other and take care of the country as a whole.
Yeah, that, like, you made a lot of great points there. I completely agree. I think that, yeah, I mean, it's going to change how people view jobs, and at least at the very least, if people's basic needs are covered, then and say they lose motivation, say they can't find it in them to, you know, get out and go and work a job somewhere. We're talking theoretically in the case of a UBI. I think that, hey, if their basic needs are covered, at least once they figure it out, they'll have the time to figure it out. Whereas if as kind of it is right now, a lot of people, if they
Yeah.
don't work, then they're fucked. Like they can't afford anything, and then what is it? Then like Jake said, it goes to crime, and then it goes to all this madness. Whereas like I see, and that's why I love Jordan Peterson and I love Gary Vaynerchuk right now. They're just like, do what you love, and then Peterson, just to take from him a little bit, he's like, who knows the upper limits of how good things could actually be if, we're trying to be the best we can be. And I think to get there, at least in some form or another, basic needs need to be met. How we get there, again, if it's a UBI or if it's some other radical thing, I don't know what else there could be, but I think that's important because like we're in this together, you know, like our species is in this together, and it just seems juvenile to still be like
Well,
at war with each
the
other. That's
concept
just the way
of
I look at
borders
it.
too is just a strange thing to me when you think about it as like the top down view. We're all part of the same world, and it would take like an alien invasion to kind of make us realize that concretely. We design these invisible lines in the sand to say, you're over there, I'm over here. It's dog eat dog, and they do that within each country, and they set up this system where we're all clawing each other's backs to try to get to the top. No one's ever getting to the top. I pulled up a shockingly simple way to explain debt, and the world debt is up to 42 trillion, I believe. And the good question that everyone always asks, and there's no real simple answer to it, is if we're $42 trillion in debt as a planet, who do we owe that money to? Is it aliens?
Yeah, who the
Well,
fuck do we owe 42 trillion? No.
yeah, well,
Not
it
that
is meant
simple,
to
but it
be
sounds funny when you
satirical
put
in a
it that
sort of way. But
way.
the scary thing is the short answer, we owe it to the lenders, which is basically the IMF, the Federal Reserve, who lend printed money in a fractional reserve system to governments, who then use it to stimulate their economy. But the shockingly terrifying answer is we basically owe it to our kids. So if you let me go down the rabbit hole here, you you start off,
Whoa,
you save
okay.
money, let's say $1 with a bank, or invest money in a fund controlled by a bank. The bank then loans out $7 for each dollar saved. They create $6 out of thin air. This is called fractional reserve banking. Who do they loan it to? They loan it to businesses, governments, and consumers. These parties pay interest on $1 a year. For each dollar of interest received, the bank loans out another $7, and so on. Businesses and consumers generally pay off their loans unless they go broke. If that happens, they default on loans, banks run into trouble. Banks then need to be rescued by the government in what's called a bailout. Governments generally don't pay off their loan, they refinance. The debt of some countries has risen to ridiculous measures. Who has to pay for the national debts and the bailouts? Well, the taxpayer does, because debts rise and interest increases. Thus, the government needs more and more tax revenues. How do they do that? Answer: they create inflation by printing money. Printing money solves the problem for the government in the short term by A, paying off the loans with the printed money, and B, additional tax revenue, because inflation will cause wages to rise. And who will be paying for the inflation? Well, the people that are trying to save. The worst losers are the unborn children, because governments represent the people. Any debt of the government is a debt of the people. A child who was born in the US today, for example, already owes other people somewhere in the world over $200,000 before the cord is cut. That is terrifying. And it hasn't crashed on us
Jesus.
yet, because this fractional reserve system where they're printing money that doesn't exist and charging interest on money that doesn't exist, it's all part of this numbers game in a computer that it's just fucking fugazi, man. That's why the concept of money, when they unpack it in things like Zeitgeist and say, what is the need for money? There's no need for money. What we should be doing, and I hate to sound like some fucking change the world type of guy, but it is really this simple. We need to start thinking more forward. The old guard is out. The people that are like, the world is the way it is and we ain't changing, that's not millennials. That's not people even younger than us. We're forward thinking. So what they need to start doing is, what does every person need? Fund that with the universal basic income. What does society need? You build cities based on logical landscapes. Don't build giant skyscrapers up to get demolished by tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever. Build them flat, build them round, build them sustainable with like farming systems, everything built in. There's cool diagrams on the Venus Project, if you guys ever look that up. They got cool like concept future cities where things could work a lot better. And what you would do is you basically abolish money. You would leverage artificial intelligence and technology to provide freedom for people that do menial jobs that don't need to be done by humans. You free up the population to do more of the things they love, like being a musician or things that contribute to the culture of society. And you kind of move forward in a more positive direction. Now, people would say, who's going to run society? Well, unfortunately, someone has to, and we'd have to place that trust in, again, government officials. It would be more of an administrative role than a kind of tell people how society is run, because we would know how society is run. But the scientists and the programmers would be the most key people to it. And, we would have to monitor that to make sure we're honest in the implementation of it. But does that not sound like a way more better way of a functioning society than the dog eat dog shit all over each other, run massive debts to
No,
give our children?
absolutely. And I think that's the reality of what we're seeing with change and where we're moving forward, is like that seems and is, I think, in a lot of ways a lot closer than what our past is, right? And I think money in itself is in the grand scheme of the world history and even human history, I think money is kind of a new concept, right? Like being able to go out and collect all the tokens, and like we talked about earlier, if life's a video game, like not one character should be able to collect the most tokens and then do whatever the hell they want. Like that's not initially what we want, what people have ever kind of signed up for. And I think now we're seeing that um in the beginning, it's fun, right? Like in after, when the world went to war and everyone kind of shut down in a sense, and the war efforts restarted things, then after that it was kind of the, I'm looking at our near history of a civilization or as an earth, and um, people realize, like, okay, if I run as hard as I can, if I run as fast as I can in this race, I can collect the most, and therefore there's the dream. Come to Canada, come to America, chase the dream, pursue more, pursue abundance. And now I think we're getting to a point where, yeah, you can still pursue abundance, you can still pursue all of that, but I think as a whole, people are realizing that abundance doesn't, it's singular, and it's for one family, it's for one name, and it's for one purpose. And like in a sense, that seems kind of archaic, like to look at it as even back in like the Egyptian days, where pharaohs were, like the level of royalty that people were treated with back in the day, because of what? Because of belief, because of, that's just the way things were. Like no one was voted in, no one was appointed, it was the way it was. And now we've created a system where families can pass down generational wealth that just snowballs to a point where, if you were rich in the 1920s, well, guess what, 100 years later, you're going to be 100 times richer, and so on and so on and so on. And
Yeah, or
I'm
more.
not, like you said, we're not trying to be like um anti anything in this sense, but at the same time, looking at things with an open mind, like that is okay. But at the same in the same breath, like, is that the best? Is that the most what's going to push us forward into a better place? And I think it will take pandemics, I think it will take issues, it's going to take problems for people to realize and continue to realize that this isn't the solution. And like you look at different areas of the US and around the world, where over like certain cities and places are being overpopulated. There's just too many people want to live in California, and California is due for an earthquake that's going to level a lot of buildings that are standing there, and the level of population that lives in those areas won't be allowed to live there. But people also need to realize that, like I went for two 13-hour drives through British Columbia, and it is one of the most beautiful areas at this time of the year. And I know winter sucks, no one likes a bunch of snow, but the land is there, like the space is there. Earth is gigantic, like we can spread out, leave the best areas, and like be okay in
Yeah,
a
that's a
sustainable
good point.
sense. But people need to realize that that looks different, like that doesn't look like what we know today. But at the same time, New York was infested faster, like Italy, these places where people are essentially living on top of each other. When a pandemic hits, they're the first ones to go, "Oh my God, like we're hooped, we're screwed, we're in this thing deep." And then you drive up to northern BC, where some of these towns have less than 1,000 people living in them, and they're like, yeah, we're okay.
We're chilling. Yeah, we're chilling.
And I'm not saying that that's a solution. Like, everyone shouldn't just run up north into the bushes and hide, and that's the world, because there's a draw of cities. There's something about being around people that's an actual electrical buzz that you feel, and it's energy and it's life. But a couple more pandemics down the road and a couple more large.
Oh, yeah, there's a Pandora's box
So,
right there. Oh, real quick, are we?
so
Well, are we like?
I know Joe wants, I know Joe wants to play
Yeah,
devil's
yeah.
advocate. I'm gonna give him the mic here, but I just want to touch on something quickly that Jackson said. Like, abundance is a thing that exists. Like, we have the materials to make this, quote unquote, new world idea happen. And it's not the 1920s where we didn't have the information available and we just built cities along fault lines and along flood zones like Louisiana, or, San Andreas Fault with California. Like, we have the information and the ability now to assess what the best places to rest populations for their safety. Why not use it? It seems willfully ignorant to ignore those
Wow.
facts.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we're in Vancouver and Burnaby right now, Jackson. Are we on that same fault line that California's on? Like,
Yep. And guess what, dude? Like, again, people in Vancouver are just living in this belief that that's down there.
yeah.
No, dude, we're cooking for a nice earthquake to wipe us
Oh
out too.
no.
Like, we're right there,
Well,
man.
what happens if 200 million people in Los Angeles slip under the fucking tectonic plate?
Jesus.
Like that. Then they're gonna be like, "Oh shit! Why did we fucking keep it there? Why didn't we move sooner?" Well, hindsight's 2020, idiots. We know that now. Fucking relocate. It would suck, but do you want 200 million people dead, or do you want a shitty
What
relocation?
a trip that is to think about, because that's like our media is based there, like in this little time zone that we inhabit right now. Like that's the whole world's the movies, except for like China, I guess, because China is like particular about certain things, and some other countries are like that too. But like in terms of Marvel movies and all these sorts of things, like the Hollywood is a global phenomenon. I think, speaking back really quick to what we were talking about before, I think that might be a little bit of where United States gets its prowess in the view of the world. But yeah, I want to play devil's advocate to the idea of um, having mundane jobs taken care of by technology or robots or whatever, and then it frees up the rest of us to be creatives. Okay, so it makes me think. I've been watching a heck of a lot Jordan Peterson, so I'm going to talk about this guy a lot because he's awesome. He,
He's very controversial, by the
yeah,
way.
he is, but for unfounded reason. I think it's
That's another podcast
yeah.
topic.
But it brings me to think about temperament, because he talks about temperament a lot. I watch a lot of his lectures, and see the thing about like freeing up for people to be artists. Um, Not everybody's an artist. Not everybody has the temperament to be that creative sort of type of person. And I think that
So
might
this,
be that might I'll let you rebuttal in a second, but I think that might be a little bit of for concern for why smaller jobs that are going to get taken up by robots or technology is concerning for a lot of people that have the temperament that enjoy that sort of thing, because not everybody is an artist or a creative. And Peterson talks about a little bit in different temperaments, and why certain creative people that are that have the temperament to, like, you got to create. One thing he says, like, to quote him roughly, he's like if you're not creating, then you're just done. You're just like, you don't know what to do, and you need to create something. And there's a lot of people out there. I think it was him talking with Ben Shapiro about how I could be wrong about that, but I know it was one of those dudes. Peterson comes to mind, but he's like, it takes it takes the creatives to be entrepreneurs, but it takes the conservatives, it takes the businessmen to run the company. So like the company needs to be run by somebody, and there are people for that. There are people that have the temperament to cook food, or to to be cashiers, or and I know it's not the ideal for a lot of people, but I guess what he's getting at is that some people are kind of built for that, and it just feels natural to them. So I feel like there's a little bit of concern about jobs being taken up by robots and technology and leaving all this room for creatives. Great for creatives, but what about everybody else?
So here's what I would say to that, and I don't claim to have the PhDs that Mr. Peterson and Mr. Shapiro have. And by the way, I saw that conversation between the two. They are on opposite sides of the coin, but it was very cordial, very respectful. That's a way to have a discussion with somebody who has the opposite views as you. I digress. I would say if you have your basic needs covered, there is a lot of people in life that haven't even gotten the chance to take a fucking breath, stop and think about what they're good at or what they might be good at, or practice things to see what they might be good at, because they are stuck in the loop of what we were talking about before, where they need to work. They have no other choice. So I get that some people aren't artists, but some people don't know what they are and they have to be good at something. So
Nice.
this would free them up to give them the opportunity to discover.
Yeah, that's a great response. I like that a lot.
Because even if you find you're a good builder, but all the machines are doing the building, then you don't build you don't build the commercial or industrial buildings. You build something in your backyard for your kids, or you use that skill for the benefit of your neighborhood. And I feel in this new system, it would be more of help thy neighbor. It would be like more of the old times where you share your bread and the guy gives you a pound of grapes in exchange for it because you want what he's got and he wants what you got.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like
you're
mowing
good
the
at
lawn
building.
and getting a case of beer.
Why don't you build me a treehouse for my kid? And because I'm a friggin' biochemist, I'll fucking whip you up some fucking age serum or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know,
Yes.
and exactly, and I think that that's the utopia that's in so many books and movies and ideas, and I think that the question then becomes, how do you ascend? And I think that this is a weird thing, because I think it's happening just in a weird natural way
Being
as we
suppressed,
progress.
though. It's being suppressed by the current setup of society. We're so resistant to change that we don't want to undertake a big change that could be not the perfect system. But let me tell you, all you listeners out there, capitalism is not perfect. We are witnessing the downfall of capitalism as we speak.
And that's the thing, is like, is how do you remove the pursuit of power? Because is that
It's a transition. You would have to on day one abolish money, but you'd have to think about the lead up to that so carefully. And there is going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be things that they didn't foresee, but it's called adjustment.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with abolishing money.
You would have to. It doesn't have a place in a new society.
Well, I mean, I guess that is the zeitgeist message, but I think that's why I would lean towards more UBI than
The,
abolishing money, because I think,
the thing is, though, is you don't know a world that doesn't have money, so it seems
yeah,
so
but I can
foreign. And
simulate it in my mind, and I'm like I feel like we all do that to some degree, and it sounds like a nice peachy cherry on the cake idea, but I think that, okay, like, just hear me out. I think that money has a serious place, in terms of
what
it just it gives you transaction, like the idea of transaction. Money does so well, like trading a case of beer for you know what I mean. There's going to be disparity, whereas money is very neutral, in the sense that it's like, how much do you value a case of beer over my lawn being cut, or like, so like the system that we have has worked so well so that we can even have this conversation. I think that, like, completely abolishing it, I don't know if that's the right way to go. There's something, I smell something weird there. That's just kind of where I'm feeling on it. I don't know. What do you
But
guys think?
is that stemming from a lack of like knowledge about how it could work in another way?
No, because, like, I mean, like, it was like, what, 10 years ago, zeitgeist. So, like, these are thoughts that, like, I mean, I
I'm
smoke
not
weed
saying
and
like
I
it
meditate
has
on
the
stuff
perfect
like this.
blueprint. I'm saying what are the barriers to transitioning to a world without money? It's
ultimately, if you mean that in not a rhetorical sense,
I
um,
kind of do, because I'm thinking, what do we need in life? We need stuff built. We need commodity. We need resources.
Money
And what does
mediates
the
that,
world
though.
have?
Money
No.
is a mediator.
Money is a means for transaction. I give you that. But why do you need transaction?
because of a trade of business, so that there's like, so it's like, okay, you do
But
this,
there's
I'll
no,
do this.
like basic. There's no real business in like that. That's what I mean. I think you're detached from what this could be.
And again, it kind of shows. I think that just two things I wanted to touch on is I think that, I mean, in my opinion, the toughest thing about the removal of something is um, for me, even personally, right now, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, dude. Like, I'll buy into that. I'll support that. But if in 30, 40 years I've accumulated a large amount of what we all try to accumulate, then I think that there's like the weird human part where you accumulate something knowing that you'll never spend it or use it, but you want it to pass in your name in this weird sense, which I think that would ultimately be the biggest thing, is how do you convince the 1% or the top. And I know 1% is a loose term because it's like, well, the world 1% is 34,000, but I mean it in the sense of the people who have such a mass of it that it's how do you pitch the redistribution of something like that? And I think human nature ultimately is just that's the weird, call it ego, call it jealousy, call it envy. Like at the end of
It's
the
indulgence. It's above and beyond what we need. So if we're thinking in the basic sense of what do humans need to function in a successful way, as far as we need water, we need food, we need shelter. Okay, give people what they need, a la a basic income, in the sense that we still have money, but in the sense that we don't. Give everyone their basic needs. And then I understand the portion of I want to go above and beyond. I want to drive a fucking Maserati if I want to do it. But and I'm not saying that I have the answer, because I could still do some research, but there is a lot smarter people than us probably working on this problem that probably have solutions to these issues. And the top thing that comes to mind just off the top of my head is, okay, you can have a system of like allotments of, okay, we have fucking sports cars. Well, if you want to drive one, come down to the lot. We'll let you drive one for a bit. Like,
Well,
I
I'm
think
just thinking
ultimately
like,
that's to a lot of people not what it's about. I think it's about, in my opinion, it's like if you switch it back to the life being a video game, it's about looking at the scoreboard. Like if I look
yeah,
at the leaderboard,
yeah.
I want to be at the end of the day. I think in whatever factor you live your life, I think it's a very um difficult thing to say. And I don't want to say difficult, 'cause I know some people are like, well, I'm not competitive, I don't care. Well, okay, that's fair. You don't care, you don't care about the leaderboard. But I think a large percentage of people do care about the leaderboard, and they do want to look up at it and say, hey, I'm at the top, and in my own way I'm at the top. And I mean, I think that as we were saying, that's why this thing is a generational, a slow turn, right? Because I think it's a lot closer to a reality today than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I think that as we begin to realize that, hey, as the betterment of a whole, you need to realize as an individual that the leaderboard, we can run that leaderboard with other things that aren't about, again, ultimately, I think, power. Like I think that that's what it all comes down to, is the satisfaction of knowing that you can do what you want to do, or you can be who you want to be. And if someone's going to try and take that away from you, or suggest a different option, um, it's going to have to be something that comes out of either necessity, which I think is where we're beginning to see, okay, we are vulnerable to something that isn't human created, as in wars or destruction, or wanting more land or more this or more that. It's like we're susceptible to sickness, and as a whole population. And I think that going even deeper into the rabbit hole of what could potentially happen is like, yeah, dude, if we got invaded one day by aliens, I think everyone would pretty quickly be like, I don't give a shit about the zeros in my bank account. Can we please get rid of these aliens before they wipe us all out? Like,
and now we've come full circle, because I was going to circle it back to the alien thing. And I think when you're thinking about the leaderboard and you're thinking about competition, it's such a narrow, individual, selfish view when you look at it objectively. Like,
I got something
I'm
tasty
competitive.
for you, real quick. Go ahead, Jake.
You can ask my girlfriend. She'll attest that I can't even lose a Monopoly without throwing a fit. So I feel you. Like, I am competitive to the bone. But when you think about what's best for society, what's best for the globe, what's best for those poor people that can't even get a fucking meal a day.
Yeah, I see. I totally, absolutely see where you're coming from.
Mhm.
I want to make the connection and parallel to sports though, because what's the point of playing a game if you don't know who wins? And okay, hear me out. I know
Life's not a game, though, bro.
what's that?
Life is not a game.
Well, I think it truly is in a way though. I think it really is because it's like I think in some way it's like how are you going to buy a house? Well, it's like if there's no money, then why do you deserve that house? How many tree forks?
Everybody deserves a house. We
Yeah,
have the
no, I know,
resources
but
to give.
what if I want that house close to the water? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like what if I want something specific?
That's a fair point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's where you can tie that into I mean power as an overarching thing, right? But like exactly if you said okay, everyone gets the same apartment, there's ultimately going to be someone who's like, okay, fine, but I want the apartment on the top floor, or I want the apartment on the far right, or I want
Let
the
me throw a couple ideas at you. So, what if we did something like first choice, second choice, third choice?
that
And
I feel like that's going to cause war.
what about a lottery system? Like, I don't know. There's
I-
just a couple ideas.
Yeah.
No, and I think that ultimately ideas is what's going to push us towards a better state. I think there's also the reality that um, we've never been at as good of a place as we are today, no matter how much people don't want to accept that or look at it or believe it. Like, we are like there. I have zero fear in my mind that a man with a long beard and a shaved head and an axe and a Viking on a boat is going to kick my door in and come in and murder me and
Straight
steal
up.
all my shit and leave. Like that to me, that's just not gonna happen. So like, for as bad as some stuff seems and how much better we know it can get, I think that that's the progression of a society to either a point of utopia, which is the ultimate pursuit that I think is probably unattainable, or destruction. And like either way, we might get to either way faster. I think that people don't want to look at the reality that like we might not have been meant to stay on Earth for the next million years, like or even 1,000 years, 2,000 years. I think that there's two ultimate ends to it, and I hope that we are just eventually known as a generation that pushed in the right direction of equality and fairness while also maintaining the pursuit of happiness, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, whatever that middle ground is. And like I think that's what we're kind of trying to explore right now is trying to figure out where that middle ground is. Like how can we keep our faculties of like individualization being like I worked for this, so I built this legacy and I could pass this down to my kids, i.e. like money, just as a quick example. But at the same time, how do we mediate the problem of like needs and homeless and those sorts of things, and like these are big ass questions, like we're
Yeah,
we're down the rabbit hole here for sure.
I I there's a term that's often thrown around, and it's totally true. The grind is a real thing, and I find in my day-to-day life, I'm so caught up in the grind that I don't have a lot of time to introspectively kind of look at myself and how I view the world. But when we have these conversations like on a podcast like this, I feel like I take more of like an overall view of what's better for everyone, not just better for me. It's such a like individualist kind of, we have this self entitlement because we were born in Canada and we're white and we're not poor. Like the majority of the population of the world is suffering, and the majority of the well-to-do and the better off people, they don't even bat an eye at that shit.
Yeah, and I think that that might be like perhaps the conversation that we're having right now is a sort of microcosm towards the attitudes that the people that do have all that power ought to maybe have. Like, why don't they have that? Like, maybe it's because of
70%
how I
tax
grew up.
rate.
Yeah, but like maybe it's how I grew up or that self entitlement or whatever. But it just literally boggles my mind that and actually, you know what? I to be perfectly honest, like I don't know how much they are contributing, but I think that there is a problem in the sense that it's enough of a problem that we have to talk about it. Like if it wasn't a problem, it would just be taken care of, right? Like the people that have billions, hundreds of trillions of dollars, and they could probably bring Africa up to our standard of living a few times over, or whatever, what have you. Like I'm talking really
So why
abstractly
not
here,
do it?
I know, but
What
that's not a
better
conversation
legacy?
that. Well,
But
yeah, and see that
then
makes sense, right?
but then there's also like obviously when you don't look at it as in um like the level of where you want to bring it to, and I totally agree of like I don't think anyone should starve on an earth where we have more than enough food. I don't think people should be dying of diseases that we have cures for. I don't think people should be suffering in a sense that is at least at certain level a human right. But then I also think that um, there's a weird human question to ask that is like as a wise philosopher of the 80s said, more money, more problems. Like do yes, you can offer that to all these people, and of course like they'll take the ending of certain areas, but at the same time I think we need to also understand that because we grew up where we grew up and how we grew up and the way we grew up, we also don't have an ability to necessarily completely understand that some of those things, of course, the basic things of like of eradicating starvation and getting rid of um, disease, hunger, like I said earlier, but ultimately. I don't know. Does all of Africa want the skyscrapers and the economy and the business?
Fair,
I know
yeah.
that's
Oh,
probably
they
not what
want running
anyone
water
is
and
saying.
electricity.
What's that?
I said they want running water and electricity and a fucking
No, but
meal.
no, and I totally agree with that, and I totally agree with that, and I think that that's where you have to. I think we all have to like look at it as like when wealth is distributed in the correct way in the right hands of people who think about it and want the right things, that's very achievable, and there's no reason that as a whole we can't look at that and be disappointed. But I also think that like for example, wasn't it Akon who went to like these African villages
Yeah.
and put like solar lights and reduce the number of like rapes by an insane percentage because there was lighting at night and women could walk safely down the streets and not have to worry like that's just a guy who got he hustled, he fought, he grind, he got what he wanted, and then he took his wealth and redistributed it. So I'll finish my thought, but I'm going to pass to Joe because I think he's got something that he wants to touch on quickly.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I was just yeah, real quick. I was just thinking, like, do you think it's because? Do you think it's because, like, okay, so it take. Okay, I'm going back to temperaments here, but to be honest, I did sales for a little while, and to be in sales, you need to have a sort of ruthlessness to you. You have to be able to like to persuade people into buying something. That's how you make your money, right? If you do really good at that, and the better you get at that, the more money you're going to make, right? So there's that feedback loop. And I wonder if Akon, being a musician or somebody that's a little bit more in touch with that empathetic route. I'm not saying that all businessmen are empathetic or whatever, but I feel like there is a certain sense of like non-empathy that goes into business. I wonder if it perhaps that is where we can shine light on something that might be missing for the people that are the most wealthy in the world. Perhaps they're so business oriented, they might need to just like take a step back and be like, okay, let's just think about this for a second. Because I know as a musician, Akon is constantly thinking about that sort of stuff and how we can,
so
right? So
so I know Jackson touched on it a little while ago about like these dynasty families that'll pass their wealth along generations and just hoard it. That's a serious problem because okay, if you're passing money down throughout your family and throughout the history of that family, they've done good charitable contributions towards society, that's another story. But when they're hoarding wealth for the sake of doing it and they're not contributing to society, that's a real problem. Now, you touched on Akon. I was going to mention that before you even said it, because this man brought electricity to 600 million people in Africa. You want to know what his net worth is in 2020? $80 million.
oh, it
In
went
contrast,
up. It went up. Wow.
in contrast, Jeff Bezos makes $2,489 per second.
Yeah,
I don't see him building fucking electricity for 600 million people. So it comes down to what is the moral fiber inside of these people?
exactly. I- is it a monetary is it a monetary issue? Is it a societal issue? Or is it
You know
all
what?
what's that?
I think it comes down to there are some serious ethical issues when it comes to charitable donations. So if you're just throwing money into the continent and trusting the people you give it to distribute it rightly, most of the time in a place like Africa, that's not going to happen because you have warlords that take the money, they use it for their own purposes, and it never makes it to the people. That's a serious issue. But these people that make $2,500 per second hire a fucking contingent of US Navy SEAL bodyguards, go into Africa with a fucking small army, and build villages that are fully functioning with running water, electricity, security. Like, you can pay to have posted up security there for the rest of your fucking life, man. Like, I don't get where people don't think outside the box of how they can make more of a difference. I can
No,
tell you, if I was Jeff Bezos rich, I would be doing a lot more than he is.
yeah, and I think that that's the ultimate reality of number of times in a day, right? And I think that it's funny, and I don't mean to loop back to him because I mean between us and between anybody listening, I have no stance when it comes to I don't have enough information. I don't have enough. I haven't went down the conspiracy theories enough. I haven't dug into it enough when it comes to Bill Gates and that conversation to be had. But at the same time, um, when you're worth $1 trillion, like you got to make a sacrifice, which is realize that you've run a business to a point that business is now okay to let go. Like if in my mind, if Jeff Bezos is still putting more than even 6 hours a day towards Amazon and his daily life of business, it's like, man, it's good. Like, it's good enough. You got Amazon to where it needs to be. You've produced enough jobs. You got enough shit going. Like, let it go and realize that you can dive into something different that's going to make a lot of a much bigger change in the overall picture of the world than continuing to try to drive that bottom dollar. And I think looping it all back, that's where it gets this weird point when, I mean, we've all taken business classes or understand business to some degree, and whether working for our own business or going to business school or whatever. But ultimately it comes back to, in my opinion, it's not it's about Jeff Bezos making his individual decisions to a point, but it becomes ultimately the bigger issue in my mind is it's quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4.
Yeah.
Make sure we're putting money back in our stockholders' pockets so they keep buying our stock, and then therefore and therefore and therefore, and it's this loop.
It's loyalty to the shareholders to a fucking, like,
A
to a
fault,
fault. Like,
exactly,
so
because who
that becomes not a problem of individualism or thwarting capitalism or the pursuit of greatness. It becomes a societal issue of how much money does one person need. And if some person exceeds a ridiculous sum of money, you need to make contributions to society, or the government needs to step in and start taxing these people more, because there is people on record, like, uh, I can't remember the guy's name, but he is a very wealthy man, and he's saying, "Please tax me more. Like, you
Mhm.
don't tax enough. Like,
Man,
you could be doing so much more."
or you read these articles of people saying like, yeah, if you pay more than X amount of income tax, like, you're an idiot. It's like, no, we just don't have an army of lawyers that can look through the fine print and discover where we don't need to pay money. And exactly, that's where I do think it does. Um, why I mean, this is like, I ultimately do believe that it comes down to the powers and the population as a whole to say, listen, yeah, dude, like, why not cap it? Okay, if you're the richest of the rich, you're richy rich, you've done it all, you've made it all. Guess what? You get to hold under your name because you need it for your ego, for your falsity, for your all those traumas you don't want to look at.
There you go.
Like, guess what? You get $200 million. There you go. $200 million. That's more than enough money that you could ever spend, your brother could ever spend, your dad could ever spend, anyone in the world could ever spend. You get $200 million. The rest of it you have to put towards a productive use to help our society go forward. Like,
Okay. I got something for that. I'm gonna play devil's advocate again.
hit me. Let's go.
I think that if I don't know if we can tell them to do it. If we
No, you
force
can't.
yeah, if you force them to make these decisions, if we force it upon them to make it, even if our reason is great, well, it's for great reason, then my question is, I ask you this: how would we be any different than Thanos?
Exactly, dude.
We're not trying to destroy half the universe. Like, honestly, if if they have this money and they're using it for good purposes, fine. The only reason I can see to have, you know, say Jackson's arbitrary number of 200 million. If you want anything north of that, I better see a contribution to society. You say we don't have the right or the ability to tell them how to use their money. Well, I hate to tell you, but there is the government telling the poor man every single day to make hard decisions with their money and
Nice.
telling them that inflation comes around every fucking 2 years and oh shit, house prices just priced you out of the market. You're never gonna buy a house. Oh shit, groceries are twice the price they were fucking 3 years ago. Like
Yeah.
the common man has a lot harder decisions to make imposed on them by society and the government than these fucking poor, woe is me, rich guys. I need 500 billion more because I don't have enough. Like, fuck, woe is me.
No, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly, man.
Nice.
All right. I think we've talked to death about the economy and universal basic income. I think we need to lighten the mood a little bit. So I think it's time for.
It's time for lightning round. It's time for lightning round.
All right, boys. All right. So we have our second inaugural lightning round. Now, this seems to be some weird thing that I boxed myself out of, so I might never get an epic rant at the end of it. But for the purposes of, you know, it's only the second show, I kind of like the way this is going right now. So I'm going to give Joe a chance at redemption
Yes.
because I want to hear your epic rant. I know you got something
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
So yeah, I have to think about it though. I'm not prepared for it.
So because the start of our podcast was based around movies that we all know and love. We're gonna do true and false movie trivia.
Oh, I like this.
So we're gonna do
Okay.
11 questions to give a chance for a 6-5 win or a fucking runaway blowout like it was last time. Are the contestants ready?
Let's do it.
Gone with the Wind was the first movie to win the Oscar for Best Picture. True or
True.
false? Jackson?
I mean, I'm gonna say. I would if I didn't hear
And
Joe
it's-
first. I would say true also. So I will say true because I do think that is actually true.
You are both wrong. It was Wings.
I told you,
Ooh.
Joe, is false. Man. Come on.
I just want to throw. Oh, that's great.
The movie La La Land was filmed entirely in Vancouver.
Ooh.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say that is false.
I am going to say false.
You both get a point. It was filmed in Los Angeles.
LA land.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Cool Runnings is based on a true story.
False.
True, for the sake of it.
It's a very loose retelling of the story, but Jamaica did debut a national bobsled team in the 1988 Winter Olympics. Joe gets the point.
Booyah.
Oh, that is awesome. I didn't know that. It's good to know.
Unadjusted for inflation, Avatar is the highest grossing movie of all time.
Ooh,
say
unadjusted for inflation. Yeah, I'm gonna say true.
Joe, yours was true as well?
Yes.
You are correct.
Nice.
Second highest grossing movie of all time was also directed by James Cameron, Titanic.
Ooh,
Wow.
Great movie too. Great movie.
All right, so we currently stand 3-2, Joe. And we're 6 questions deep, so we got 5 more for a comeback. The lion featured in MGM Productions logo is the same lion that appears in The Wizard of Oz.
Ooh,
False.
True.
It is false. There have been multiple different lions used in the MGM intro throughout the years, but no real lion ever even appears in The Wizard of Oz.
Yo, and straight up, I heard on a quick little tangent that the lion for MGM like ate.
Yeah, it killed somebody, didn't
killed
it?
somebody or something.
I didn't know that.
Just
Yeah,
got your
tweeted
ass
it.
eaten by a lion. Dude, I can't even watch Wizard of Oz either, man. I've tried because it's like, it's Wizard of Oz. Like that movie is all creepy. start to finish. Anyways,
Superman made his first movie appearance in the 1940s.
false.
True.
The first movie to feature the Man of Steel was the eponymously titled Superman, released in 1948.
Ooh, shit.
It is 5-2. We got 3 questions left.
Oh,
Jackson
I
needs
need
to
him.
for a tie.
Okay. Shit.
During its original release, the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial had a runtime of over 4 hours.
Joe,
False.
you go first.
False.
Okay, I'm gonna say that the original. Yeah, I'm gonna say false.
It is false.
Yeah, thank God. But I lose anyways because Joe gets a point too.
Do you have pride?
Yeah, exactly. No, I want to fight till the end. I need at least a few minutes and questions to swallow that and be okay with it. I'm okay with it. We can move on.
Mary Poppins features the first use of a swear word in a Hollywood movie.
False.
True.
It is false. This one is entirely.
Fire.
Mary fucking Poppins.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Tom Hanks speaks less than 200 words in Toy Story 2.
True.
True. Yeah. Yeah. True.
You guys are way off. There are
What?
multiple standalone scenes where Woody has more than 200 words of dialogue.
Damn it.
I was trying to figure. I don't even know if I. Oh yeah, I gotta watch more Disney. That's coming down the pipe. With my little guy. I'm gonna run through all of Disney. I think.
Yes.
All right,
Anyways.
so Joe is the winner of the second episodic lightning round. So you're gonna get your chance at an epic rant at the end. I'll cue you up for when you get to go. I have enjoyed these segments so much. We're actually gonna run the gamut and do all of them tonight. So the next one in the hopper.
Yes.
What's weird in the world today? What's weird in the world today?
All right. What's weird in the world today? Now, this segment came about because every so often I'm browsing the news and there is a story that just hits me in the face like, that can't be true, or what the fuck, or oh my God, did you see that? So I have one lined up for today. I don't know if you guys came packing today, but if you did, we can touch a little bit on each one of the ones we brought to the table. But
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. I got one. It's gonna be short though, so it'll be nice and short for us. I won't ramble like I usually do.
Joseph, you packing?
Let me just look at my Facebook saved videos.
We'll let him do that. Jackson, you have the floor, man.
What's weird in the world today is actually something that I believe is wonderful in the world today, and I might be late to this party, but I was recently creeping through the deep dark web of the internet, and I stumbled upon an article that was canceled and renewed TV shows. And so, what I believe is weird and also wonderful in the world is um, the show that I believed was never actually a good show, but somehow was loved around the world. Big Bang Theory has officially been canceled. And I am rather happy about that because I've never, from the beginning of that show, understood why people think it's funny or what the draw is to it. But overall, I am just a happy guy that it will no longer be leaking its way onto the TV circuit.
It kind of grew on me as I watched it. Like the annoyance factor of all of the characters, they're nerds, and nerd culture is cool. They're on the very far end of the nerd spectrum, but
And I
it's
respect
unlike
it.
anything I've ever seen.
I respect it, but I lived with a family when I was 17, and the dad of the family he loved watching it, and he used to like sit down and watch it every week. And for a year straight, I sat there and I was like, I get it, but I don't get it. And I think it filled its need it needed to fill. And I'm rather happy that it's moved on now. So for those of you who love the show, I apologize. And for those of you who are like me and never quite understood it, I think it's a good thing. They all made a shit ton of money and they're all moving on to something hopefully better, probably never bigger, because that show was gigantic.
Yeah, it's huge. Like the actors are getting paid astronomical amounts of money. It's from the same guy as Two and a Half Men, so I mean, it's a global phenomenon, and everything has to end sometime. I think it was starting to, outplay its welcome, so it's probably a good spot for it.
Absolutely.
Is Joe still here, right?
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, baby.
Okay, so what's weird in the world today for me, and I know you guys had to have heard of this, and I was fucking floored that this actually happened. And it just kind of snuck in there as the pandemic's at its height. So I feel like it was very strategic, but on April 27th, 2020, the U.S. Department of Defense issued a public statement authorizing the release of 3 UFO videos taken by U.S. Navy pilots.
Yeah,
The
whoa.
footage appeared to depict airborne heat-emitting objects with no visible wings, fuselage, or exhaust performing aerodynamically in ways that no known aircraft can achieve. Now, only a small fraction of UFO reports collected globally over the past 7 decades seem to describe such objects, but the Navy footage appears to fit the bill. Whether such objects are vehicles of alien invasion or not, their mere presence would seem to indicate a national security threat, which is kind of why the Pentagon's announcement is so puzzling. It's the first time the Pentagon has publicly confirmed the authenticity of UFO footage. It's a momentous announcement, but it barely moved the needle. What's going on, guys?
Dude, is that where we're at? Are we living in such a twisted, backwards
2020, bro.
reality? With dude, like we have a reality star as a president. We are just consuming information and media at such a wildly fast pace that like this literally went over the heads of everybody. Like this didn't even it wasn't even it didn't even dude, it didn't even go into meme culture. Like no one even made
I didn't
memes out of this.
I didn't hear my bros fucking texting me at 3 a.m. saying, "Yo, did you see the UFO fucking footage? Oh my god, we're getting invaded."
Dude, literally, I think everyone was just like, it's one of those things that we're all like, yeah, see, told you. Freaking told you there was aliens. We all knew it. And now they're just confirming it. Freaking knew
I've
it,
seen
man.
some weird shit in my life, man. Like a couple incidents. I'm like, I don't know what the hell that was, but
Dude, here's the thing. And argue with me if you want to argue with me, but no, you two, I think, will agree. And if you don't agree, you know what? You're
they're
wrong.
real.
I don't want to have the conversation with you. But, like, come on. Come on. You're,
Okay, if you've ever watched Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the universe is so fucking big. We can't be the only ones. Come on, you'd have to be crazy.
Exactly. So it just I feel like that's a big step, man. Like back in the day, people were like, "No, there's no possible way there's aliens," and now we have confirmation of UFOs, and people are like, "Yeah." But
Now let's preface for the audience here. Like we said, it doesn't necessarily mean like aliens, but it's definitely like either aliens or another nation has developed an aircraft that is like aerodynamically superior to ours in every way.
even
I
if
don't know which one is more likely.
but if it was that, I feel like we'd have a bigger reaction. It would be like, "Oh, we're going back to war. We don't know what that is, and we're scared. We're going back to war." Where like they're like, at least if it's a UFO, people are like, or if it's an alien, people are like, "Well, nothing we can do about it. We're just stupid humans. We just got to deal with this now."
Yeah, we just want to ask them questions like, "What are you here for?"
If it is a national security threat and it is another nation with a sophisticated flying machine, it begs the question: if they feel it's a national security threat, why release it publicly? Like, what was their reasoning for releasing
Okay,
this?
I got fuel for my rant now.
Dude, again, like I don't know if at this point, I don't think that the guy running the information gives a shit, dude. Like I don't know if he has like
Johnny T?
yeah, dude. Like I don't know if he has motivation for why he does things. It's more or less just
Space
like
Force,
why
bro.
not?
Space Force.
Dude, Space Force. I totally support
Oh,
Space Force,
so
dude.
the next podcast, I'm almost like insisting that we dive into the tasty world of outer space because I love that shit. I know Joe does.
Yeah, man. What's weird in the world today? Okay, where do we start? I'm still looking through my Facebook videos.
All right. Why don't you stock one up for the next time we do this, and we'll move along.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I got something. You want to know what's weird in the world today? Two things. Okay, there's a fish that's desperate for love, and he creates an amazing structure with the sand and rocks and little trinkets that he finds on the ground, and he uses that to woo future mates. That is bonkers to me, to think that fish think like that. Like, fish are going for love. Okay, so that's pretty fucking weird. And furthermore, I would say that birds, there's a bird cage. There's a documentary on, I can't, I think it's Planet Earth 1 or 2 on Netflix that you can check out. But there is a bird that goes around and picks up garbage and collects garbage and compiles it and puts it in certain areas of his little domain so that he can attract a mate. And to me, that is not only weird, but it's actually kind of hilarious that the female bird of that species bases her mate on how much stuff he's got, and I think that's so human. It's
Dude,
hilarious.
do you think the
Well,
bird thinks it's garbage, or do you think he thinks it's like treasure?
Yeah, it's like beautiful. I think it's beautiful treasure. I think.
You know, like he doesn't know it's garbage. He's not like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring this sick ass garbage back to my house.
Yes.
He's like, oh my god, dude, the amount of bird tail I'm gonna get with this sick, shiny piece of tinfoil.
His granola wrapper.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I think that that's weird that we can find human qualities in other animals. And I'm not saying that all females are gold diggers, because that is kind of what it sounds like, and I'm not saying that. But I
Dude,
just think that that's funny.
that just shows us like it's funny because like when animals do human shit, humans get amazed by it. But like, do you think animals look at humans and be like, they don't even know they're doing animal shit? They think they're doing something different. Like,
That's funny.
you know
Like,
what I mean? Like,
well, 'cause, like, elephants apparently think we're cute.
yeah, well, we're idiots, dude. Like, as a whole, we're goddamn idiots. Of course, like that's my favorite argument about aliens in the whole world is that aliens showed up like however long ago, and we're like, nah, dude. Like, maybe it's not that we haven't found aliens, it's that aliens found us, and we're just like, these people, this is not where we need to be. We're moving on.
There's my rant. I got a rant for you, boys. 3 minutes.
Okay, hold on. We got one more segment, and then we're gonna go into Joe's epic rant to recap or cap it all off. Final segment is gonna be fact check. So throughout the show, there's gonna be a lot of facts dropped on every episode, and what I try to do is, whether it was me or the boys here dropping facts, I kind of follow up on them, and I kind of see how off base we were, just to keep things level.
I love that.
So the things I caught today, Kevin Feige was with Marvel from the start of the MCU. He actually joined Marvel as a company in 2000. He applied 3 times and was rejected, and then finally got taken in. I think it was for the X-Men movies. And he was actually a producer on Iron Man, which was the first MCU movie. He's been involved in every single one of them. The Soviet Union lost around 27 million people during World War II. That includes 8.7 million military and 19 million civilians. In total, 405,000 Americans gave their lives in the conflict. And the world debt, I think I pegged it at 40 trillion, which I thought was a staggering number. Here's something for you, boys. It will exceed 257 trillion in the first quarter of 2020. A lot of dollars. Aliens, man. They own a lot.
They're gonna show up one day and be like, "You guys owe us so much money, and you're idiots. You guys are done." That's
all right.
hilarious.
So with fact check in the books and another fantastic podcast episode, we leave it to Mr. Joe D'Souza to get his time in the limelight. Let's see your epic rant for the day, buddy. Hold on.
Time for your favorite segment, Epic Rants. Time for your favorite segment, Epic Rants.
Yeah.
Have at her.
Here's my rant, baby. Aliens, what are you doing? Okay, I wanted to just for a quick second, let's just assume that aliens have been watching us for thousands of years, just chilling, UFOing every once in a while, just being up in the internet, letting us get all excited and then confused and then making movies about them. If they're here to help us, obviously they must be here to help us, because if they're not, then we would have been done a long, long time ago. So what are they trying to do here? Are they trying to just let us figure it out on our own? Are they being good parents? Is that what they're doing? Are they us from the future? What is going on? Where are these aliens coming from? What's going I want answers. I'm a little pissed off that these other extraterrestrial beings are not being a little bit more active in the development of our species. Should they be real? And if they're not real, well, my rant is over.
All right, fair enough. Aliens, motherfucker. Get your shit together.
Fucking aliens, what are you doing?
All right, boys, another fantastic episode. I think I enjoyed this even more than the last one, which makes me really look forward to the next one. Can't wait for it. Any parting words from either one of you?
Yeah, real quick. I should have kept going for a minute, and I thought it would have lasted for 3 minutes, but it was basically a minute rant, and then I gassed it. So
That's okay.
You're messing with my format.
I think that aliens will be touched on multiple times as we go deeper and deeper, and I think I just want to say I think the beauty of this podcast and what we're hopefully learning is that the more that we mesh together, like the flavors of a fine wine aging in an oak barrel in the basement of a winery in the middle of Italy over years and years and centuries
love
until one day it's taken out and shared amongst the lucky lips that get to taste the nectar of the wonderful grapes that have been fermenting for years and years. I think we're just getting better and better, boys, and this thing is only starting. We're rolling downhill, and I can't wait to sit down and record episode 3. Well done. Thanks a lot, guys, and can't wait to do it again.
yeah, likewise.
All right. And on that note, you guys can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at See What Sticks, a variety podcast. You can follow us on YouTube, See What Sticks podcast, and YouTube and Twitter as well at the same handle. You can go to www.seewhatsticks.net, interact with our blogs. Feel free to leave a comment, suggest some content for us. You can hit us up on the email. And you can also watch old archive podcasts on there. We will be posting any links to any videos that we look at during the podcast episodes on our social media or on the website, so you can reach us there. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on See What Sticks.
Cheers.
Peace.